In the mid-90s, gaming was on the brink of a revolution. 3D environments were transforming the industry, and developers were itching to push hardware to its limits. Enter Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, a first-person shooter that hit the Nintendo 64 in March 1997. It wasn't just another shooter in a market that was already seeing its fair share of Doom clones. It was a bold step into uncharted territory, combining expansive levels, visceral combat, and, of course, dinosaurs. Developed by Iguana Entertainment and published by Acclaim, Turok was based on a lesser-known comic book series first published in the 1950s. While the comics featured a more traditional Native American hero battling dinosaurs in a mysterious lost land, the game took this concept and turned it into a high-octane action experience. The result was something fresh and unique, even during a time when innovation was the name of the game. Turok stands as one of the most important games of its era. It didn't just prove that the N64 could do shooters, it proved that shooters didn't have to mimic the Doom formula to succeed. This game didn't just have style, it had substance, offering players a sprawling, visceral, and unique adventure that many still remember fondly today. The story of Turok serves as a backdrop for the game's action-packed adventure, blending science fiction, ancient mysticism, and comic book energy into a narrative that's simple yet effective. You step into the boots of Tal Set, a Native American warrior bearing the title of Turok, which is passed down through generations to protect the mysterious lost land. This strange dimension exists outside of time and space, where prehistoric creatures, alien technology, and warring factions collide in chaos. The main plot revolves around Tal Set's quest to stop the Campaigner, a villainous overlord who seeks to dominate the lost land. To achieve his goal, the Campaigner is after a powerful artifact known as the Chronoceptor, a weapon of unimaginable destructive potential. As Turok, you're tasked with finding these fragments before the Campaigner can assemble them, all while surviving the treacherous landscape and its deadly inhabitants. While the story isn't delivered through cinematic cutscenes or extensive dialogue, it's woven subtly into the gameplay. The environments tell much of the tale, with ancient temples, futuristic technology, and overgrown jungles, hinting at the Lost Land's mysterious past and the Campaigner's dark ambitions. A notable aspect of Turok's story is how it bridges genres. It's part sci-fi epic, with advanced weaponry and interdimensional technology, and part prehistoric adventure, filled with dinosaurs and ancient ruins. This mashup of ideas creates a unique tone that sets the game apart from other first-person shooters of the time, which tended to stick to singular themes like military combat or gothic horror. The story of Turok takes a backseat to the gameplay, but it doesn't feel like an afterthought. It provides just enough motivation to drive you through its sprawling levels, and its minimalistic approach lets players focus on the intense action. The Lost Land itself feels like a character, offering a rich and mysterious setting that keeps you wondering what lies around the next corner. The gameplay in Turok was groundbreaking for its time, offering a blend of exploration, fast-paced combat, and platforming that felt fresh in 1997. At its core, it's a first-person shooter, but it stands out thanks to its emphasis on non-linear level design, a wide variety of enemies, and an arsenal of unique, over-the-top weapons. From the moment you enter the Lost Land, Turok immerses you in a sprawling jungle filled with secrets, enemies, and deadly traps. Unlike the corridor shooters that dominated the FPS genre in the 90s, Turok embraced open levels that encouraged exploration. You weren't just running from point A to point B, you were climbing cliffs, diving into underwater caves, and solving puzzles to unlock new areas. The game features an impressive arsenal of weapons, ranging from standard fare like pistols and shotguns to more exotic tools of destruction. The tech bow, for example, allowed you to silently pick off enemies from a distance, while the fusion cannon was an absurdly powerful weapon capable of annihilating everything on screen. The enemies you face are as varied as the weapons you wield. You'll go up against everything from human mercenaries to velociraptors, robotic monsters, and massive bosses that fill the screen. These enemies are more than just cannon fodder, they have distinct behaviors that keep combat challenging. Raptors are fast and relentless, while human enemies can duck and dodge your attacks. Boss fights are another highlight, pitting you against colossal foes like the Thunder Lizard, which requires both skill and strategy to take down. Platforming plays a surprisingly significant role, with sections that require precise jumps across narrow ledges or platforms. While this added variety, it was also a point of frustration for many players. The first-person perspective made it difficult to judge distances, leading to frequent falls and unnecessary deaths. Combined with the game's punishing checkpoint system, these moments could feel tedious and unfair, breaking the flow of the otherwise intense action. The controls in Turok were both revolutionary and divisive. The N64's analog stick allowed for smoother movement and aiming than was possible with a D-pad, which was a big deal for FPS games at the time. However, the control scheme was unconventional, with the analog stick used for movement and the C buttons handling strafing and looking around. This took some getting used to, and while many players adapted, others struggled with the clunky feel, especially during intense firefights. Despite these flaws, Turok's gameplay was undeniably ambitious and addictive. Its mix of exploration, combat, and platforming offered something for everyone, and the variety of weapons and enemies kept the experience fresh from start to finish. Even today, Turok remains a standout example of what the FPS genre was capable of in the late 90s. When Turok landed on the Nintendo 64, its graphics were a double-edged sword. On one hand, it was a technical marvel that showcased the console's power. On the other hand, certain limitations of the hardware and the ambitious design choices led to some glaring issues that are impossible to ignore. Combined with its atmospheric sound design, Turok created a sensory experience that left a lasting impression, even if it wasn't always flawless. The sprawling levels featured lush jungles, misty caves, ancient ruins, and futuristic strongholds, creating a diverse and immersive world. The environments were designed with a sense of scale that made the Lost Land feel massive. Tall cliffs, winding rivers, and towering temples gave the game an epic sense of adventure, while distant horizons hinted at areas yet to be explored. The character models were another highlight. Enemies like the velociraptors, humanoid mercenaries, and mechanical monstrosities were detailed and well animated for the era. Bosses in particular were a visual spectacle, often towering over the player and exuding a sense of danger. However, the graphics were also marred by one of Turok's most infamous issues, the fog. To manage the N64's limited processing power, the game employed an aggressive distance fog to reduce the strain of rendering distant objects. This meant that players often couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, creating an environment shrouded in mystery or frustration, depending on how you viewed it. Despite the fog, the game's lighting effects were impressive. Torches flickered in dark corridors, sunlight streamed through jungle canopies, and weapons like the fusion cannon delivered explosive visual effects that lit up the screen. For 1997, these touches added a level of polish that helped players forgive some of the graphical shortcomings. The sound design in Turok is where the game truly excelled. The music, composed by Darren Mitchell, was a mix of tribal beats, eerie ambiance, and adrenaline-pumping action themes. Each track complemented the setting perfectly, heightening the tension during combat and enhancing the mystery of the Lost Land during quieter moments. The use of dynamic music, which shifted based on the action, kept the player immersed and added a cinematic quality to the experience. Sound effects were equally effective. The roar of dinosaurs, the guttural growls of enemies, and the echo of gunfire reverberated through the Lost Land, making the world feel alive and dangerous. Voice clips were sparse, but when used, they were impactful. Enemies would grunt, scream, or shout when attacked, adding to the visceral nature of the combat. While the graphics and sound weren't perfect, they worked together to create an atmosphere that was both thrilling and oppressive. The fog may have been a technical limitation, but it added a sense of foreboding, while the audio design elevated the gameplay to cinematic heights. For better or worse, Turok's visuals and sound were unforgettable, leaving a mark on anyone who ventured into the Lost Land. When it launched in 1997, Turok was a commercial and critical success. For many, it was the first FPS experience on the N64, introducing players to a world of 3D combat and exploration that felt groundbreaking. It also helped establish the N64 as a viable platform for more mature gaming experiences in copies, cementing its status as a flagship title for Acclaim and paving the way for several sequels. Turok also showcased the potential of the N64 hardware, pushing the console to its limits with its expansive environments and intense action. Though its heavy reliance on fog drew criticism, this technical workaround became a part of the game's identity, adding to its mystique. Not all aspects of Turok's legacy are glowing. The game's ambitious design choices came with their share of frustrations, such as disorienting level layouts, challenging platforming, and occasional performance hiccups. These issues, while forgivable at the time, became more apparent as the FPS genre evolved. Later games with smoother controls and more intuitive level designs made Turok's mechanics feel clunky in hindsight. The franchise itself saw a mixed trajectory following the success of the first game. Sequels like Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, refined the formula with better graphics, more varied enemies, and multiplayer modes, earning critical acclaim. However, as the series progressed, it struggled to maintain relevance. By the early 2000s, Turok had faded into obscurity. But the announcement of Turok Origins has sparked excitement and curiosity among longtime fans and newcomers alike. Positioned as both a reboot and a deeper exploration of the character's roots, this new title has the potential to reintroduce the Turok franchise to modern audiences while respecting its legacy. Turok remains a cherished memory, a game that dared to be different and succeeded in creating a thrilling, if sometimes flawed, experience. Its recent remaster by Night Dive Studios brought the game back to modern platforms, giving a new generation of players the chance to experience the Lost Land. Though it may not stand shoulder to shoulder with the FPS titans of today, Turok Dinosaur Hunter holds a special place in gaming history as a bold and innovative title that captured the imagination of gamers in the late 90s.